best life minus the burnout? I'm Zuri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP, you. You're the star of your life, so own it. Join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to The Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Oh, here we go, packed on a Tuesday. Welcome in live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be. However you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. 1 hour from now, The Herd hierarchy, top 10 teams in the NFL, painstakingly, team by team, pouring over that this morning. And Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy, how are you?
I'm good. What was that last night? That was hard to watch at times.
It was not artistic. It was not grand.
Well, for the Seahawks it was, but...
So I want to start the show with this. I tell my kids this all the time. Solve the problem. I'm not into victimhood. I don't want to hear about your issues. Solve the problem. I don't hang around negative people. Solve the problem. Yap, lie. I don't get this. I don't get that. All right. Nothing's perfect. Solve the problem. It's amazing in the NFL how few teams could solve their issues and can't. Green Bay can't stop the run. Why haven't they solved it this season? You can trade up to week 8. Coach guys, Chicago offensively needs more juice when Tariq Cohen got hurt. Why can't Ryan Pace, the GM, and Matt Nagy, why can't you solve the problem? What you watched last night is Seattle, a Hall of Fame coach, and probably John Snyder, a borderline Hall of Fame general manager. You watch them solve a problem. So Seattle, we know they have stars. Bobby Wagner's maybe the best linebacker in football. Russell Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks in football. But they had no pass rush. And last night they solved it. And it wasn't just Philadelphia. They now have 19 sacks in the last 4 games. 5 more than anybody in the NFL, including the Steelers. Now, third down, they were awful. Their offensive line is middle of the pack. It's not atrocious, but it's not great. But when Chris Carton is running, this is a Super Bowl team. There's 4 key ingredients historically to win a Super Bowl. You gotta have the right coach, you gotta have the right quarterback, you have to have some semblance of a pass rush to make star quarterbacks in the other team uncomfortable, and increasingly, you gotta have some playmakers. You gotta occasionally get an easy touchdown. We saw that with Kansas City over the weekend. You know, the good teams have some playmakers, and Seattle has all of this stuff. 19 sacks, 4 games. And this is what's interesting. So Seattle knew going into the season, we don't have much of a pass rush. And so what did they do? Their general manager, John Snyder, said, all right, let's go get Carlos Dunlap. He started squawking. He wasn't happy. And they gave up a nothing pick to get him. And then right before the season, they gave too much up for Jamal Adams, but they got Jamal Adams as a safety, but plays like a linebacker, and he loves to blitz. And then they had drafted a first-round defensive lineman last year, L.J. Collier from TCU. Didn't do much, hurt his first year. Second year now, he can play. But they solved an issue. And now Seattle, to me, we know there's 3 really good teams in the NFL. Chiefs, Steelers, Saints. Seattle is 4 to me, along with other teams. But they did something that very few teams in the NFL. Folks, you can trade until week 8. Green Bay can't stop running games. Make a move. They didn't. Seattle had a pass rush issue. No more. They solved it. Trent Dilfer and I talked about this yesterday. This is what Pete Carroll does. This is why he'll end up in the Hall of Fame. And Pete can drive me nuts on some things, and Seattle's GM sometimes butchers first-round picks. A couple years ago, took a running back. I didn't get it. He's a bust. Still don't get it. But it happens. It's not science. It's drafting. They're young kids. They're 20, 21. Some have heart. Some have soul. Some have a work ethic. Some don't. You can't read their palms. You don't know exactly what you're getting in most cases. But in the end, Seattle has solved a primary issue. Why doesn't Chicago? Your offense needs juice. Solve it. You got 2 months to make trades. Green Bay can't stop the run. Solve it. Here's Trent Dilfer talking about this yesterday.
Everybody in the in the talent and coaching business understands the acquisition of talent is important. Where most miss it is the development of that talent. They didn't panic when they weren't getting a pass rush. Now they went out and acquired more talent, but then you have to develop that talent. You have to have it mesh with the rest of your players on defense too. They've tweaked their system a little bit. They're not going to say, we're just going to do this system because this is what we do. They're going to tweak their system around that talent that they've brought in and that they've developed.
By the way, in September, Seattle had 5 total sacks and allowed 500 yards a game in September. In October, they allowed 460 yards a game. In November, they have 22 sacks and are allowing 340 yards a game. Every month, they coach it up, they acquire, they get better, and you watch Seattle last night, and to me, they look like a Super Bowl team. Because they got the coach, the quarterback, the pass rush, and the playmakers. Not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but those are the 4 things you have to have, and one of them was missing in September and early October, and now they've solved it. Like, just because you start a project here, you got to be able to pivot. That's what every great business book tells you. Every company you start within 6 weeks, you're like, all right, I've got to pivot off that. Amazon, Netflix, look all of them. They pivot off stuff. And it's like Seattle, if Seattle gets to the NFC Championship, they would not have if John Snyder and Pete Carroll wouldn't have been willing to move off. They're kind of, here's what we have. We got to keep elevating and improving and acquiring and trading. And ask Carson Wentz. What you saw now, you say, well, the offensive line for Philadelphia, they have 19 sacks in 4 games. That's 5 more than any other team in the National Football League, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have a great pass rush. All right, I want to go to this. I want to defend Carson Wentz in about 5 minutes, but let's do this first. So I see another public wrestling match. Bruce Arians came out yesterday and said, well, Tom Brady's been calling the plays for the last month. Look at me. Tom Brady's... Oh, boy. Let me just say this. Guys love to give themselves credit. And for the first time in my broadcast career, you guys are not giving yourself credit. Oh, you rushed to Twitter to tell me how special you are, all 4 of your followers. But today, men, I am asking you to give yourself credit. So let's look at Tom Brady's numbers this morning for Tampa. Oh, they're just utterly disastrous. Oh, wait, they're not. 28 touchdowns, 11 picks, 65% completion percentage, and a passer rating of 95. Oh, those are excellent. Now, they have been at times inconsistent, and their running game does disappear, but his numbers are on pace to crush his numbers last year. He's already got more touchdowns than last year, a better completion percentage than last year, and a better passer rating than last year. And oh, by the way, if you go to your little pocket schedule, take out the first game against the Saints, bunch of new guys and no camp, I'll just take that game out. They've scored 31, 28, 38, 38, 45, 25, 46, 24, 24. 2 stinkers, Bears and Saints. Ooh, bad actors have bad movies. Good actors, have bad movies, and great bands have bad albums. Oh, Tom Brady with no OTAs and no camp and no preseason had a couple of stinkers. One against the Bears and one against Saints, top 2 or 3 team in the league. Okay, remember when this trade was made? All you people said the same thing. Listen, if Tom can be productive but just cut down on Jameis Winston's mistakes, it's going to be a 10-6 team. Oh, check. He's on pace to throw half the interceptions of Jameis Winston and be more productive. Tampa was 7-9 last year. They'll be favored in all 4 of their next games. Let's say they win 3, they're 10-6. Oh, that's what you predicted. Their offense is number 7 in scoring. About what we thought they would be. Yes, they've been inconsistent. And yes, their running game can disappear. And I don't think Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, I don't think they're the perfect fit. I just don't. I think they're old school to, detailed, more rigid. But we've moved into silliness territory. This thing is largely what you predicted, what I predicted, what Joy predicted. We didn't think they were going to be the Chiefs. We didn't think they were going to beat the Chiefs. Most of us did not think they would be as good as the Ravens. They're better. We didn't think they were going to go 13-3 like Green Bay. Many of you thought I didn't. Many of you did. Most of you Didn't think they would be the Seahawks. They may end up with a better record. Give yourself credit. We can do all this public arguing Arians and Brady. His numbers are really, really good. They're like Tom Brady prime numbers. Take out a Randy Moss here or two. He's cut down on the Jameis mistakes. That's exactly what we hoped for. And we all predicted 9-7 or 10-6. They have a chance to go 11-5. This is a lot of noise and silliness. Now, this is a good team. Occasionally excellent Green Bay game, Carolina game, that can be inconsistent, shocker, no preseason, and sometimes forgets they have Leonard Fournette and the really speedy Ronald Jones. But in a world where guys rush to Twitter with 9 followers to tell you how brilliant they are, today I'm giving you a pass. You nailed it. This is exactly what we thought they'd be. Exactly what we thought they'd be. And, by the way, they are a top 8 to 10 team. That's what 9-7 generally is in the NFL. All right, it seems impossible, inexplicable, but I will defend Carson Wentz. I know, I am on an island. I am on an island, but I will defend him plus herd hierarchy coming up top of next hour.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
I'm Eleanor Wells, host of the new podcast About a Girl, and I want to tell you some stories. David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Paul McCartney, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison. You probably know these names, but this is not really about them. This is about the women behind the legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. Women like Angie Bowie, Mary Austin, Jane Asher, Rita Marley, and Pam Curson. Each episode, I'll give voice to one of these women who have remained muted in the shadows for far too long. These are incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. About a Girl is executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, The 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Carshield.com, the code is HERD. Save 10%, deductible may apply, a warranty when yours runs out. So Carson Wentz is not very good right now. His mechanics, his confidence, his accuracy all stink as the Eagles lost last night. 25 of 45, 2 TDs a pick, a passer rating of mid-70s. Not very good, very backup-ish. I'm going to do the virtually impossible because I think it's very possible and defend Carson Wentz. He signed a big contract. Howie Roseman, the GM, signed him to a big contract. And there was some risk involved. He was young, it was expensive, and he had had injuries. So let's start with that. But I defended it, and I still do today. Why? It's very easy this morning to wake up throwing pots and pans. Let's go to Carson Wentz right before the contract was signed. So what was his trajectory like? Year 1, passer rating, 79. Year 2, 101. Year 3, 102. Oh my. That's an A quarterback. He's getting better. His completion percentage went from 62 in year 1 to 69. Oh my. His passing yards a game went from 236 to 253 to 280. Oh my, he's getting better. That was the trajectory. Then he signed it. And here's the following year. 27 TDs, 7 picks, 4,000 yards, 64%, 9-7 throwing to deck chairs and scout team guys. And now you're all bailing. I'd like to remind you he's missing his 2 top offensive linemen, a Pro Bowl tackle and a Pro Bowl guard. Andre Dillard, Washington State left tackle, drafted last year, hurt not playing. Zach Ertz, tight end out. Alshon Jeffrey, receiver shot. And Jalen Reagor can't separate. Other than that, it's just rainbows and birds chirping. I don't know what's wrong. Does he have a backup quarterback complex? There's a statue of Nick Foles outside the stadium, and they drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. And he's the only starting quarterback in the league that's asked about his backup every single week. Carson Wentz last night asked about his backup, asked about quarterback, asked about starting after the game.
There's been a lot of talk and speculation about you possibly getting benched or something like that. Does that weigh on you at all? Do you think about that at all? And did that occur like during the game? Any of that come up?
Yeah, I mean, I said it last week. This is what you sign up for. And as a quarterback, ever since you're a kid, you're prepared for any of those. Nothing's ever guaranteed. And so for me, I don't think about that though. I just try and go out and be the best player I can be in practice, prepare my tail off, compete my tail off, and hopefully we can get this thing turned around.
By the way, Seattle's good. He lost to them last night. Ooh. He's not really good right now. His idol, Brett Favre, even criticized him and said he'd take Foles. They draft a backup who he gets asked about every week. The statue of Nick Foles, I don't know if it's in his head. But I know Eli Manning, year 4, led the NFL in picks. 56% completion percentage. They were talking in New York about getting rid of him. They didn't. He won the Super Bowl that year. Peyton Manning, the superior quarterbacking brother, in year 4 went 6-10, 26 TDs, 23 picks. Nobody talked about getting rid of him, but it's not linear. Great actors have bad movies. Great bands, again, have bad albums. I don't know what it is, but look at the trajectory of why they signed him. Passer rating, completion percentage, yards per game. Up, 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 getting better. Big arm, excellent size, trajectory excellent. And then they signed him last year and the team physically fell apart. And he was 9-7, 27 TDs, 7 picks, 4,000 yards, and 64% completion percentage. And this year he's missing his best tight end. The rookie receiver's been hurt, not what we thought. Alshon Jeffrey's over the hill. Best guard, best tackle out. And the guy they drafted at left tackle from Washington State is hurt and can't play. Frank Reich, his best coordinator, is gone, now a head coach, and an excellent one in Indianapolis. Go ahead, bail, do it. Trade him away, fine. I'm not. I've been watching this game long enough. They wanted to trade Eli. Peyton Manning was awful year 4. Brett Favre threw 20 picks, 7 times? I'm guessing off the top of my head. I think he'll get it right, and I don't know what the problem is. But just wanted to add some context. Here's Joy with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
The Texans will be without wide receiver Will Fuller and corner Bradley Roby for the remainder of the 2020 season. Both have been suspended 6 games for PED violations.
Not
Will be
good.
out the rest of this year, yes, and miss the first game of 2021. Fuller announced on Instagram that he was suspended after taking what he said was prescribed medication that he thought was permissible. Roby also released a statement saying he unknowingly used a product that was contaminated with a banned substance by the NFL, so no one knows how they got, they know where they got them, but they didn't know that they were banned by the NFL, so they will both be out for 6 games. Another loss for Deshaun Watson, obviously.
He was playing great, by the way.
Playing great, but,
the winner's Miami.
yes.
The Miami Dolphins, when you're well run, it seems like you get all these crazy breaks. And when you're poorly run, it seems like you can't get one. So Miami has Houston's first round pick, and Houston now will probably lose games, more of them, and guess who benefits? The Miami Dolphins will now have another great pick.
Yeah, I mean, now, obviously, the Dolphins couldn't have predicted that Will Fuller and Roby would be suspended for
right.
the final 6 games.
But when
However,
you're well run and make the right trades, you benefit from them.
luck favors the prepared,
Yes.
and that is where the Dolphins are right now. But I do feel bad for Deshaun Watson. It feels like
Oh, God.
there's always something, and, I really hope that I hope that they're able to turn things around in Houston for his sake, because I do think he has a lot of potential, and I'd hate to see his career squandered by a terribly run organization.
Oh, he's had a great last month. Yeah, he's not the issue.
He's not the issue.
But you know what, Joy? We've said this. Sometimes it's not fair. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. He goes to a team without an owner that's not an attractive free agent market. It's not fair. It's reality. Tony Romo gets undrafted. Tony Romo goes to Dallas. The offensive line gets great about the time he gets hurt, and Dak gets the great offensive line. And by the way, Kansas City Mahomes gets Andy Reid, great weapons, and a great GM. And Deshaun Watson now doesn't have a real coach. Well, he's got an interim coach, and the GM was the coach, and so it's just like life. Brady got very lucky. Owner, defense, O-line, coach, and that's why Brady won a bunch. And by the way, Joe Montana got lucky. But the reality is, what if Troy Aikman doesn't get Jimmy Johnson as a coach? Troy Aikman is Troy Aikman, who was 9-7 most of his career. Like I feel bad for Deshaun, but this is the way the NFL works.
Yeah, life's not fair.
It's not.
He is a I think he has the potential. He's a great player. He has the potential to be spectacular if he was in a situation that was functional and they could put the right pieces around him and get things stable. I mean, this is just another example of what happens in Houston, and it's going to directly affect him and benefit the Dolphins. So the Ravens and Steelers game has been postponed another day. It will now take place on Wednesday at 3:40 Eastern.
I love this, actually.
This will force more changes to next week's schedule. The Pittsburgh and Washington game that was originally on Sunday will now be played on Monday at 5 Eastern, and the Baltimore-Dallas game that has been pushed, was on Monday, has now been pushed to Tuesday at 8 Eastern on Fox.
So by the way,
track of all that.
so I get Lamar Jackson and the Ravens against the Dallas Cowboys next Tuesday.
Yes.
And I'm supposed to be unhappy with that?
Oh, no, I love it.
I'm
The players
deliriously
are probably extremely frustrated, and the
I love
coaches,
it.
I'm sure, hate it because this is, it's completely routine changing, but this is the world that we're living in. Like, everyone has to make adjustments, and that's what this season has been. Like, teams that are able to make adjustments and figure those things out, this is what the world is. Like, everyone is trying to figure things out on the fly, and the NFL's done an amazing job of moving all these things around and, trying to protect the players, giving them time to recover, and also not have to extend the season. They're trying to get all the games played without having to extend the season. Now, Ravens running backs Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins will now be eligible to play against the Steelers because their 10-day isolation period is over. However, they're still going to be without Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Willie Snead, Calais Campbell, and Matt Jodun. So they're still without a lot of key players, but it is good that they're getting those two running backs back. Finally, Jared Goff obviously struggled taking care of the ball. He's been struggling recently
a
with
real
that.
fumble issue in the last month.
Yes. In the Rams' last two losses to the Dolphins and Steelers, he had 7 total turnovers. But Sean McVay says he never considered benching his quarterback.
Of course.
If I thought it was going to be the best thing to just take a deep breath and step away, then I'd say, maybe, but not in either of those situations, because both of those reflected, kind of having an opportunity where there was enough plays made to get back in it. So yesterday that was never part of the consideration, nor was it really for Miami, to answer your question.
Guys.
By the way, he's 40-18 as a starter under McVay.
Let's just slow down. Slow it down. Bench Jared Goff, which is what we're talking about.
40-18 in the toughest division in football.
Listen, I am an extremely impatient person.
Yeah.
Okay, ridiculously impatient. However, I do think it's important to maintain some level of self-awareness. Benching Jared Goff, okay. For who? Okay, you want to know who? Would you like me to read their backup credentials for you, Colin? It's John Wolford.
Oh, I love him.
Me too. No regular season NFL experience, was signed as an undrafted free agent to the Jets in 2018 and played in 1 preseason game.
Oh, that's the option.
He played in the AAF in 2019 for the Arizona Hotspots.
Oh, those games were on pay-per-view. I watched every one of them.
And joined the Rams in 2019 after the AAF suspended operations and played in 4 preseason games. Bench Jared Goff? Guys, I don't know anyone who's fabulous all the time, and I'm about as close as it gets.
By the way, a week ago, I watched him play Brady, and he made a bunch of good plays and stuff against Tampa. The same defense that ate Aaron Rodgers alive, Goff faced him and beat him. It was pretty good.
I think we're just getting a little bit crazy with the moving off the quarterbacks thing. Like, you're going to have bad games. You're going to have bad spells.
Right.
There's adjustments and things you're going to make. Everyone's not going to be fantastic all the time.
Derek Carr, who we all like now, has had bad years. Like, back-to-back bad years, and now we all like him. Like, this is the hardest position in sports, quarterback.
Did you see Sunday? It was a disaster. Sometimes you just have a bad day or a bad couple of weeks. It's how it goes. Bench Jared Goff.
Absurd. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Live News.
There's all sorts of stuff going on right now. It's in coaching too. So now everybody wants Harbaugh fired at Michigan, and he's no good. It's Albert Breer joins us, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Monday morning quarterback Albert Breer. So I'll get to the Harbaugh thing in a second. I was saying, listen, I don't think Arians and Brady are the perfect couple. I mean, they are different. Brady's very efficient, detail-oriented. The short pass game, he mastered it. Arians is more go deep, blah, blah, blah. But I look at Tom's numbers this morning, and he's 65%, 95 passer rating. They've been inconsistent, but outside of that Bears and Saints game, you mostly get 29 points a game without many, here's the numbers: 95 passer rating, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. I do think, I'll throw this out at you and have you respond to this. I do think it's possible Arians has retired before. If they struggled over the next 4 games, one and done in the playoffs, and looked ugly, I could see Arians stepping aside and a Josh McDaniels get a shot, or a Brian Dable, a younger guy. But in the end, are we making too much of the Arians-Brady struggles?
No, I mean, look, when you go and you sign Tom Brady, you're implicitly telling everybody we're competing for a championship. You don't sign a guy at 43 years old if you don't feel like that's where you're at. And right now, they're not at that level. And I do think that there's some frustration on the part of Brady. And yeah, the numbers are there, Colin, but remember, the bar for him is way up here as far as individual performance goes. And this is a very, very different offense. So I think you're starting to see signs that Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich are starting to bend a little bit to the way Brady wants to run the offense. But, having talked to some people around the league, I know that really the perception is that they're not running an offense right now. They're just running plays. And Brady's used to having such a comprehensive offense that has answers to everything, that marries the run game to the pass game, all of that stuff. And so I think that's where some of Brady's frustration comes from. And I think it's important. Somebody pointed this out to me last week, to look at some of the older quarterbacks who've been in this situation. Brett Favre, when he went to Minnesota, Darrell Bevell was there. Darrell Bevell had been his position coach in Green Bay. Peyton Manning goes to Denver, right? They try to meld, Mike McCoy's offensive system for about a half a year with what Peyton Manning did in Indianapolis. And they got to midseason, and they were just sort of like, the hell with it. We're going to run Peyton Manning's offense. And they wound up running a version of what he'd done in Indianapolis. And so I think with these older quarterbacks, in each of these cases, you see where the team comes to a realization. The best thing to do is to let the guy do what he does best. And hopefully the Bucs are starting to come to that realization, and maybe this becomes more Tom Brady's show than it has been.
You live in the Northeast, you know the Patriots well, and I lived there for over 10 years and watched every Patriot snap. And I said, these wins over teams like Arizona feel great in the moment, but right now they draft about 15th. And I looked this morning, in the top 13 teams that are picking, I counted 5. Jets, Jags, obviously. Teams like Chicago probably draft a quarterback. I said here, Jets, Jags draft a quarterback. Washington football team drafts a quarterback. Denver, I think, has to consider it with how good quarterback play is in their division. And then I think Chicago and Minnesota would both roll the dice and draft, maybe not a roll the dice, and the Patriots at 15. I guess I'm asking you this. New England's probably going to win a game or two. They're not going to get inside 10. There's about 5 first-round quarterbacks. What are their options today? Are they going to re-sign Cam?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I guess what you're asking is, are the Patriots turning themselves into the 45-win NBA team?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that there's some merit in that argument. I would just tell you, I think Belichick has to have this program competitive. I think it's a hard program to sell to players, and for everything to come undone in year one and not be competitive in year one coming out of the Tom Brady era, I think would make it very, very difficult for him to sell what's a very demanding program to players. Because remember, high school kids, college kids, outside of the kids who play at Alabama, really aren't coming up the way that they used to. And so I think Belichick has to keep the program competitive. I think that's more important than just finding the next quarterback. So I think what the best course of action here has been, will be, going forward for the Patriots is finding somebody that they're comfortable with, whether it's Cam or someone else, for the next 2 or 3 years, and then eventually going all out to go and get one. And I think the perfect parallel, Colin, is what Alex Smith was in Kansas City, where they knew he wasn't going to be their quarterback for the next 10 years, but he bought them time to find the next one, to pick their spot and go after somebody they really loved. And so I think Cam, there's still a chance he can be that guy for New England, but I think their best course of action is to find that guy so they're not forced to overreach for one in 2021. And look, I mean, it's a strategy I think you're seeing Carolina employ too with Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's a smart way to go, and they hope that Cam can be that guy going into 2021, but if he can't be, maybe it's somebody like, I don't know, like a Matthew Stafford or someone like that.
I got to ask you about Jim Harbaugh. Again, this is just the overreaction Tuesday, where now Harbaugh suddenly is a bum and can't coach. I think he probably stays at Michigan. He makes a ton of money. He has total control, and I think COVID has unraveled A lot of people. It's unraveled Penn State. I mean, it's just the reality is some have reacted well to it and some have not. But if do you think there'll be a team out there that calls Harbaugh? Somebody jump out to you?
Yeah. The one team that jumps out to me is the New York Jets. I've been told consistently over the last few years that Woody Johnson has a little bit of an infatuation with Jim Harbaugh. He, of course, is still in the UK, but his ambassadorship there is going to end soon, and I think that's part of the reason why you've seen the Jets a little slow to make any sort of big moves within their football operation. But whenever that comes, I would think Woody Johnson would at least want to kick the tires on Jim Harbaugh. Remember, he interviewed Jim Harbaugh well before there was NFL interest in him. He actually interviewed him all the way back in 2009 when Harbaugh was still new at Stanford. They wind up hiring Rex Ryan at that point, but Woody sort of kept an eye on Harbaugh throughout. So I don't know if Harbaugh's issues the last couple of years at Michigan would cause him to back off of Harbaugh, but I do know that there was that feeling there and that Woody's kept tabs on him over the years. And then the other one I think is sort of obvious, which is the Chicago Bears. I think if there was one job that Jim Harbaugh would really want in the NFL, among the ones that potentially could be open, I think the Bears would be really, really attractive to him because he played there, because he was a first-round pick there, and because he had great admiration for the coach he played for there, Mike Ditka. So those would be the two that I would sort of keep an eye on just off the top. If Harbaugh was going to leave Michigan and go back to the NFL, would be the Jets and the Bears.
Carson Wentz, you owe him a lot of money. I was just saying, I understood when they signed him. There were risks, but his trajectory, completion percentage, passer rating, yards per game, all went up. And then last year, it should be noted, he had, over 20 touchdowns, 7 picks, 4,000 yards, throwing to backups and scout team guys. I don't know what's wrong. Does he have a backup quarterback complex with Foles and Jalen Hurts? I have no idea. But again, what are their options in Philadelphia?
They're married to him contractually, so they have to make this work. And, I think there was always going to be some level of change in coaching there. I'm starting to wonder if it might happen at the top. I think that there's going to be a real deep dive into what's gone wrong this year, why the trajectory is where it is. Going from the Super Bowl to getting knocked out in the second round last year, getting knocked out in the first round. I think that the owner there, Jeffrey Lurie, is going to really want to take a real look at everything that's gone wrong in the organization. And obviously Carson, because of the investment they have in him, is going to be a huge part of that. Again, they're married to him for next year. They're married to him the year after that. That's why, going to Jalen Hurts for 2 plays yesterday didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But really, I think for right now, they've got to commit themselves to trying to make it right. Yeah, they lost Andre Dillard and Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson, and the skill position players aren't right now. But, when you pay a quarterback that much, Colin, part of the deal is he's going to have to make do with less. He was able to do it last year. He hasn't been able to do it this year. And really, because, again, they're married to the guy for the next couple of years, it's incumbent on them to figure out why.
Yeah, but 3 offensive linemen they thought would start are not there, and this is part of what you saw last night. Wentz is always forced to make quicker throws. Albert Breer, great talking to you, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
We're really seeing something in sports. There's all these new GMs. There's a go for it. You're seeing it in the NBA. You're seeing it in the NFL. You saw it in baseball. And there's a handful of NFL teams that I think that it's in their DNA. They are go-for-it teams, and I saw a little bit of it last night. I'll talk about that, plus herd hierarchy top of hour 2.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha here, bringing you the devilish sounds and twisted treats of my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies, where I, your host, Kesha, bring you into my twisted universe, where the supernatural is, well, quite natural. Kesha and the Creepies explores supernatural subjects and alternative lifestyles with today's most exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult. You may know me from my party jams, like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable and mystical that drives these fascinating conversations that span non-traditional spirituality, psychedelic art, and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
RecTech Grills with a Q, RecTeq.com, built by grillers for grillers. You can start the grill driving home from the grocery store. It's good to have you in. Top of the next hour, herd hierarchy. Brian Westbrook will stop by as well. So, I've been on this for a while. It used to be in the NFL, you just didn't make trades. Jimmy Johnson was the first really coach, general manager in the league that made huge trades. I think the New York Giants had made one trade ever before Jimmy Johnson made his big Herschel Walker move. And so now you have a lot of young GMs. And, for years and years, we always credited the New England Patriots with hoarding all their draft picks. Yeah, but they don't have any good players. So I'm watching the Seahawks last night, and they literally turned around their defense by giving up a draft pick for Carlos Dunlap and giving up a bunch for Jamal Adams. And you know what they don't miss today? Any of those draft picks. They're 7-3 and in first place in the toughest division in football. You look at the LA Rams. I live in Los Angeles. Joy and I do. Aaron Donald, they drafted, but they went out and got Jalen Ramsey and gave up a first-round pick, and they went and got Andrew Whitworth, the left tackle that saved Jared Goff, and they went and got Robert Woods in a trade, and they haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff. You start looking around and go look at the NBA. This is why the Green Bay Packers, who they pay their house off, they put all the max money in the 401k, but they never go for it. And what is Green Bay missing? A star player on defense. Is that you go look at the last 3 NBA champions. The Lakers gave up a ton of picks. People complained, they're giving up 4 players, all these picks for Anthony Davis. You know what they don't miss today? Picks. This is the worst draft of my life. Remember when Toronto got Kawhi Leonard and everybody said, it's a 1-year rental. He doesn't like Canada. He doesn't like cold. You were right. I forgot what they gave up. Nobody cares. By the way, Golden State, Kevin Durant. Nobody cares. It's like, I love the draft. But especially the NBA draft. The kids are coming in right out of high school. I mean, they got 1 year of college. They go right to the NBA. They're not ready to do anything. Even the guys I like Morant, who I really like, he's at 1 through 10, he's at about a 6.5, 7. He's still got to mature, playing big games. Zion Williamson can't get his body right yet. So in the basketball, I would give up everything first. I'd give you up 10 years of number 1 picks for Anthony Davis. Who cares? I mean, God, look at how many players and draft picks the Pelicans got this morning. They were still forced to sign Brandon Ingram a month ago to a massive contract, which you're stuck with that now for a good player, because he's a B player with an A contract. It just doesn't matter. Like Jamal Adams for Seattle, I thought they gave up too much. I don't think a safety is worth 2 first-round picks. I still don't love that. But this morning, he and Carlos Dunlap have saved the defense. They're just in every... just look around everything right now. Look around Mookie Betts, the Dodgers. Dodgers were winning their division every year. And then they gave up a bunch of prospects for Mookie Betts. And you watch the games and I watch the games, you're like, oh yeah, I'll tell you what they don't miss, prospects. What's happening to the draft is that, and the draft still has value, but in basketball, the players are coming in younger, less experienced. There's a long runway. I mean, LeBron James has basically said, I don't want to play with Andrew Wiggins. Give me Kevin Love. I mean, Kevin Love, we knew he wasn't a great defender. He wasn't the most athletic guy. He was a good rebounder. LeBron's like, I'll take that. Everybody's like, Andrew Wiggins, 45-inch vertical. He's got to be amazing. No, give me Kevin Love. I'll take Kevin Love. I mean, LeBron James doesn't want to play in Miami. Didn't want to play with young guys. Give me Ray Allen. Give me Shane Battier. Give me limited veteran guys. So the reality is, when I look at the Green Bay Packers, people are like, why don't you ever kind of give the Green Bay Packers love? And my takeaway is, they're the guy that maxes his 401k and pays his house off. Green Bay doesn't have enough playmakers. They need like a playmaking linebacker and another pass rusher, and I don't think they're going to get past teams like Seattle and New Orleans. New Orleans went out, Emmanuel Sanders. Let's get another guy, add to our play. So I don't know. When I watched Seattle last night and Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams, I'm like, this is the future. This is what. And in Los Angeles, I saw the Lakers do it with AD, the Dodgers do it with Mookie Betts, and I watched the Rams do it with Jalen Ramsey. Huge moves. I mean, the Dodgers gave up best prospects. The Lakers gave up all these picks and players, and the Rams went out for Jalen Ramsey, and I don't remember what it was. It could have been 2 firsts. They gave up first-round picks in all 3 of them. It is totally paid off. The 80's a title, Mookie's a title, and frankly, Jalen Ramsey's great because he's a big corner and you can put him on DK Metcalf. That's why the Rams match up with Seattle pretty well. They match up with Arizona pretty well because you can put him on Deebo Samuel, San Francisco. You can put Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf. You can put him on DeAndre Hopkins, who are big targets. And you can see DK Metcalf, these little corners don't stand a He's like Iron Man in the Avengers. Like, nobody can guard him. All right. Also, I want to say this about New England. We were talking with Albert Breer about New England. They're a little bit trapped. Go show the draft board again today, because we can start talking about this stuff. Now we're getting to week 10, week 11, week 12. If you look at the draft board right now, so here's your current order. So let's just talk quarterbacks. Jets are going to take Trevor Lawrence, number 1. Jags are going to take Justin Fields, number 2. So the Bengals don't need a quarterback, and the Cowboys aren't drafting one either. Either of the Chargers, and by the way, either is Philadelphia, and I don't think Carolina will. Teddy Bridgewater, you can win a lot of games. They got bigger needs than quarterback right now. Washington will. So Jets, Jags, Washington, first 8, all taking quarterbacks. Then you get into these Detroit and Atlanta, where you got to start thinking about it. In Atlanta, I would. In Detroit, I'm not sure I would with Stafford. They have bigger needs. Atlanta, I probably would. Miami's not drafting a quarterback, my guess. So, but Denver, I got to face Mahomes twice, Derek Carr twice, and Justin Herbert twice. I'm drafting a quarterback. They got plenty of players in Denver. They don't have a quarterback. So now we got Jets, Jags, Washington, Denver. I think Chicago has to draft one. So that is 4 quarterbacks by the 13th pick. So Minnesota may, I don't know. So New England needs a quarterback. Jarrett Stidham's not the answer. They can stay with Cam for a couple years. Fine with me. But what's interesting for the Patriots, what you have to do here, what you don't want to do is give away a bunch of picks, because you're going to have to give away a bunch of picks to move up. But I was told by a general manager before, what the Patriots have to do is get to number 3 with Cincinnati. There's no value in getting to like 5 with the Chargers. Then on draft day, Carolina moves ahead of you. Then you've wasted all the picks and you get a worse quarterback. So it does look like we've got Trevor Lawrence is an A prospect, A+. Justin Fields is an A. I would say Trey Lance and Zach Wilson at BYU are very good prospects. And then Mac Jones at Alabama, he's something. I didn't think he was a year ago, but the people I trust and all the scouting stuff I look at, he's probably number 5, and maybe in New England you go there. But that's kind of the state of quarterback play in the NFL. I start every season saying we only need about 3 more teams with quarterbacks, and by week 10 I'm always like, we need about 8. We need about 8 teams. Every year it's the same thing. Herd hierarchy next.
There's a phrase I love in Hindi, kuch bhi ho sakta hai. It means anything can happen. And growing up in Shimla in the Himalayan foothills, I knew it was true. I am actor Anupam Kher. Back then, Shimla was a remote hill station in India, and for a boy like me, it was a world of possibilities. It's where I had my first kiss, where my father put all of his faith in our local bread seller, and where I learned my most important lesson about failure. I'll tell you those stories on my podcast, Anupam Cares. You might know me from my films like Silver Linings Playbook or my show New Amsterdam, but here I wanted to do something different. So I'm bringing you stories from my life and from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us of everything life can be. After all, it's the stories we tell ourselves that shape how we live. The good, the bad, and the surprising. But let's focus on the good. Find Anupam Cares on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts. That is ANUPAM, Anupam Cares. Launching December 7th.
Hey everybody, this is Jill Scott, and I am pleased to introduce you to J.Ill, the podcast. I am joined by my amazing, brilliant girlfriends, Laia St. Clair.
What up, though?
And Aja Graydon Dantzler.
Hey, y'all.
We are going to be talking about a lot of amazing things like individuality,
Family and blackness.
listen when you're on your long drive home. Listen when you're shopping at the grocery store. But listen to J.Ill, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Ah, here we go. It's hour 2. We're live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. I came to the realization last night I'm going to have facial hair for the rest of my life, and I don't know what to make of it.
He's fully committed to it.
Yeah, I walked by a mirror last night, and I looked at it, and I thought, yeah, this is what I'm going to look like the rest of my life. Just more wrinkles. I never really thought about it before, and I thought, well, it's kind of a Hemingway look to it. Like I'm an old man by the sea, an old mariner.
I know that you think facial hair makes you look older, but it actually makes you look younger.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I don't understand that. It's gray. It's like
but I don't think. I mean, gray obviously makes you look a certain age, but I don't think it necessarily makes you look old.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I like salt and pepper.
Yeah. You know, remember the song Salt and Pepper?
You mean the group?
Is it a group or a song?
Yes.
It was a group.
Yes.
They have one song that is so funny. You know which one it is.
They have a lot of songs that say a lot of things, so I don't know which one you're talking
about.
It's
the most popular song they ever did.
That made you look old. What you just did.
It wasn't the beard.
I'm sorry. By the end of the show, we'll play it. Do we have to pay for it?
Probably.
Well, now we play under 30 seconds.
You can just sing it.
I'm not going to sing it.
Okay.
But I thought they're a group. They're not. It wasn't a song. Salt and Pepper.
Yeah.
My wife right now would just be horrified.
She's cringing.
Well, she just likes hip hop and all the fun music, and she likes new groups, and she'd be horrified that I struggle.
Yeah,
with
and keeps you young.
Yeah, current, as she said.
Current. Yes.
Be current. All right, here we go. I spent a lot of time on this. Not sure why. What's the point? I like doing it. It's my top 10. It's the herd hierarchy. By the way, I'm not one of these sports guys that, I used to work at a company. I don't know what happened to them. But they used to just put the rankings based on the record, which is so hacky. Like, what does that mean? I do it based on the higher you go, I think you would beat the teams below you this morning. So that's how I do it. Like, here's the best teams if they play today. Here we go.
Herd hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
I'm going to put Cleveland in there. They've had the third easiest strength of schedule. Baker Mayfield, though, 4 games without a pick. So they've kind of figured. By the way, they have they throw the ball very few times and run it more than anybody percentage-wise in the league. They're 5-0 in one-possession games. They're the number 1 rushing offense, and I think I'm putting them here because of Kevin Stefanski. He has figured out, at best, Baker Mayfield is a complimentary piece. Run the football, don't make mistakes, easy schedule, we'll get into the playoffs. They're not a Super Bowl team. I'm not sure if they'll win a playoff game team. I don't think they can beat most AFC teams that'll win their division or wildcard teams. But I think they've figured out what they are and what they're not, and for that, with their record, 5-0 in one-possession games, they're number 10.
Number 9.
But I think they'd lose to Tampa Bay, who I put at number 9. So they've had back-to-back losses. How can you do this, Colin? Folks, they lost close to Kansas City. It's a very good football team. Their defense is number 1 against the rush in the National Football League, number 2 in takeaways in the NFL this year. They humiliated Aaron Rodgers. It's a good football team. Tom Brady's got 28 TDs and 11 picks. That's already better than last year. They're fine. Now, Brady's also got the worst deep ball passer rating in the league. I think they have forced the ball down the field too much. I don't think that plays into Tom Brady's strengths, but they've had a tough schedule. They played the Saints twice. They played the Packers. They played Kansas City. This is a good football team, and I would take them over Cleveland.
Number 8.
But the Rams beat Tampa, so I put them at 8, and they're a good football team. Listen, Kyle Shanahan has got Sean McVay's number. Nobody else does, but Kyle Shanahan does. He's beaten them 4 straight games. First loss at SoFi Stadium, but again, it's a good football team. Number 2 in total defense, number 2 in pass defense. I think they have the best secondary in the NFL. I would be concerned with Jared Goff in the last month. A lot of picks and a lot of fumbles, and Sean McVay rightly called him out for that. But this is an excellent team. If Goff is your weakness, then you have a chance to get to a Super Bowl eventually. Rams at 8.
Number 7.
But I put the Bills at 7 because they beat the Rams, even though it was a bad call at the end of the game. Here's what I like about him. Listen, Josh Allen can drive me nuts. He makes some dumb plays. But he's the only quarterback in the league with 20-plus touchdown passes and 5-plus rushing touchdowns. He's a horse. He's Big Ben. He's just a handful, and he drives me nuts, and he makes mistakes, and he did in college, and I think it's part of his DNA. He's going to drive me nuts his whole life. But I think this coaching staff is outstanding. Sean McDermott is now 4-0 off a bye. That's Andy Reid. That's Belichick. That's what the good coaches do. And their defense isn't great. But I'll say this, it's great situationally. It's great in the fourth quarter. They've got 10 takeaways in the last 5 games. That's tied for the NFL lead. And 10 takeaways in the fourth quarter, which is tied for the NFL lead. You don't have to be great defensively, but you have to be great at times. And they are, and I got them 7.
Number 6.
But I think they'd probably lose to Green Bay in a shootout. Listen, here's my problem with the Packers. They're 0-2 against teams with winning records, the Bucs and the Colts. They're 8-1 against everybody else. But it is fun to watch. I'd vote Aaron the MVP this morning. He's lighting it up. They have a star back, a star receiver, a star quarterback. I think their offensive line isn't great, but it's usually top third in the league. Now, they face one team remaining with a winning record, Tennessee. So people think I have them low. I have them at 6 because I think they beat the Bills. That's where I have them.
Number 5.
But I think the Titans would beat the Packers because King Henry would run down their throat. The Titans are a funny team. I don't think they can get to the Super Bowl, but good God, I'd have no interest playing them in the playoffs. They scare me. I mean, it's like I think Lennox Lewis was a better fighter than Tyson, but I think I'd rather face Lennox Lewis than I would Mike Tyson. Titans, fewest giveaways in the NFL. They never give you the ball. They try to just run it down your throat, and if they get into a mood, you'll just sit and watch them run the football. Ryan Tannehill, by the way, has had 8 straight games with a touchdown pass. When it comes to running the football, nobody can physically humiliate you in the league like Tennessee, and so I put them at 5.
Number 4.
But I take the Seahawks to beat them on a neutral field. I think Seattle, excellent coaching and GMing, they solved their pass rush in season. 19 sacks and 47 pressure since getting Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams on the field together. Both are the most in the NFL. They have solved their pass rush, which was a big question in September and October, and it's also simultaneously, what do you know, made their secondary, which isn't great, good at safety but not great, it's made that better. Their big issue now is can Chris Carson stay healthy, and the offensive line outside of left tackle is a bunch of meh.
Number 3.
Saints. Listen, they've won 8 straight games, longest streak in the NFC, and I gotta be honest with you. If you can keep winning with backups, you win. They're 8-0 since week 4. They're first in point differential, first in yardage differential, third in points per game, and first in points per game allowed. What do you want me to say? And they're doing it with Taysom Hill. They did it last year with Teddy Bridgewater. They went 13-3, 13-3, and it looks like this year they'll go 13-3. Well coached, smartly run, very good line play. I do think there are limitations to them going over the top, but that's why I have them 3.
Number 2.
And have the Steelers number 2 because they can beat you over the top. They're also 5-0 in one-possession games. Let's be honest. They get a little lead on you, and then they suffocate you with that pass rush. They have the number 1 scoring defense. They're number 1 in sacks. They're number 1 in takeaways in the NFL. And now, they play the second easiest schedule. So I do not think they can beat my number 1 team.
Number 1.
Kansas City. What do you want me to say? I mean, they're the only team in the league down 3 scores and you wouldn't care. In Kansas City's offense since week 5's number 1 in everything that matters. They had a hiccup against the Raiders in a loss. Other than that, since week 12 last year, ahead, they can play with a lead. They can play finesse. They can run the ball. My only real consideration for Kansas City that worries me is they're a little bit the Golden State Warriors. I said this yesterday. When you score so dramatically and quickly and brilliantly that sometimes you lack urgency, and there are times I feel like they go out there and they're just kind of just 7-on-7 it. They don't have a ton of urgency. They're kind of flipping it backwards and kind of experimenting a little bit, but it's the best team in the league. I have not seen an NFL team score this quickly or so brilliantly. I can't name it. I don't know. I can't compare it to anything. It's different, and so Kansas City is number 1. So let's look at it again. Kansas City would beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh would beat New Orleans. New Orleans would beat Seattle. Seattle would beat Tennessee. Tennessee would pound Green Bay physically. Green Bay would win a shootout with Buffalo. Buffalo beat the Rams. Rams beat the Bucks. And I think the Bucks would beat the Browns. There you go.
I have no issues. Maybe I would put Green Bay above Tennessee.
Yeah. I just think the ground
But they
game,
both have holes.
Yeah. I mean, They play each other week 16, and I like Tennessee. Yeah. All right, there you go. Pretty happy with it. Brian Westbrook, the former Pro Bowler with the Eagles. What do you do about Carson Wentz? What are they saying? Plus Seth Joyner joins us today, and Andrew Whitworth of the Rams all coming up.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you'd like.
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? Maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well then let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall. Join us each week as we discuss dating, relationships, self-care, career wins and losses, and so much more. Oh, and moments like this. You know what? Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Well, that's why I mentioned muting. There are some people who will check you.
Oh, we got some petty people in our lives.
I was crying by the water because I was happy.
And I do love a clear.
Not liquor. Wine will be spilled, laughs will be had, and a few tears might be shed. Messes will be made, but we're gonna find our magic in the middle of them. Don't miss new episodes every Monday. Find Hot Happy Mess on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In 4 days, it's the fight of the fall as undefeated Errol Spence Jr. takes on Danny Garcia for the World Welterweight Championship. Available on pay-per-view or buy the fight on foxsports.com/PPV and watch on any screen you want.
And if they want to put Mike Tyson on that card, I'll pay even more for it.
This is a great fight, though.
It is a great fight. Good to have you in. So we found out this Salt and Pepper song was What a Man, which I know the words to it. I did for a long time. I knew the words for it.
Peppa.
Salt and Peppa.
Yeah, not pepper.
They're a new hot group.
Salt and Pepper. What a Man is the song you were referring to.
Not a good man.
Which is not the song that that immediately popped in my head. That's not bad, actually, though, Colin.
Yeah, I know. At one point, I knew like 75% of the words for that new hot group. Brian Westbrook played for 8 years in Philadelphia. He was a Pro Bowl running back multiple years, and he is now joining us via the Coward Global Satellite Network. So they're freaking out about Carson Wentz. But I was saying this, Brian, as a running back, you know this. So they're missing Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson and Andre Dillard on the offensive line. And their offensive line got completely worked last night. And then Zach Ertz is out, and Alshon Jeffries isn't what he used to be. And I sit and I think to myself, all right, let's bury Wentz. And in Philadelphia, that's what they're doing. But they're stuck with him, right? Like, how much is Wentz and how much is the lack of what he's working with?
Well, number one, I think you're absolutely right, Colin. They are stuck with him because of the contract that he got in June of 2019. You know, the salary cap hit, if you get rid of him, next year and the following year are huge, and so they are stuck with Carson Wentz. So they need better play from him. But you're right. You know, for you to get better play from your quarterback, you need him to play better, number one. But you also need the pieces around him to be better. And Andy Reid always used to say, if you want to win football games, you have to be able to win in the trenches. That means the offensive and defensive line. And what you've seen from the Eagles and the 6 sacks last night is a lack of healthy bodies in front of Carson Wentz and a lack of continuity and communication with those guys in front of him. And it's just hard to play quarterback in the NFL if you're going to get sacked and pressured and hit all the time. It makes you overthrow guys. It makes you not be able to go through your reads. And I think that's all the things that we've seen through Carson Wentz inconsistent play all season long.
So what do we do with Doug Peterson? We know he had a good month in the playoffs. We know most players like him. We know he beat Belichick head-to-head. That doesn't mean he's a great coach, but it means he's capable of greatness. What do we do with Doug Peterson? You stay with him, you move off him. What do they say in Philadelphia?
Well, the people in Philadelphia are not very happy with Doug because they're trying to figure out what's going on with the Jalen Hurts situation and why do you keep bringing him into the game or not leaving him in for a series and then you take him out, and what's going on with the offense. And really, when you look at this offense, it really hasn't had any rhythm at all. We saw that at the beginning of the football game last night. 5 straight series 3 and out. I mean, it's just hard to win a game when you start that slow. And then really when you think about it, that 6th series, they did something that a lot of people have been calling for. Allow Carson Wentz to roll out. Allow Carson Wentz to run the ball a little bit. And what we saw yesterday, when he runs the ball, he seems like he gets more involved in the game. He gets more in tune. I mean, there are some guys that believe and think that once they get hit, now they get into the flow of the game. And it seems like that's what Carson does. And I think Doug Peterson, who usually has a good pulse of his football team, a good pulse of his players, should know that. But this year it seems like he hasn't been able to find his rhythm as a play caller. And so that's why a lot of people in Philadelphia are very upset with Doug Peterson.
You know, it's interesting. Philadelphia is, for a big city, it's very much a working class town. It's one of the places where sports talk radio gets huge ratings. It's Philadelphia's tough. I remember when I used to go to the airport in Philadelphia, it looks tough. It feels tough. You see tough guys at the airport. And some of this, I think that with Carson Wentz is he's got this loud sports radio audience ripping him. The newspapers, there's 2 or 3 newspapers, they're battling and ripping him. He's got a statue of Nick Foles. They draft Jalen Hurts. He's got a backup quarterback complex. Just talk about having played in Philadelphia. There had to have been players when you were there, Brian, that were eaten alive by the media and the toughness. And it's hard. Like Boston and New York media are rough. I mean, I've listened to the sports radio. It is hard. And I think a little bit, is it fair to say, you played in it, maybe the noise of Philadelphia is in Wentz's head?
I know Philadelphia has kind of gotten a bad rap as far as the fans and sports radio and things like that. But to me, they've always been fans that are certainly passionate about their team. They're fans that are very knowledgeable. And in the end, what they want to see is you go out there and work your butt off and find a way to win. And what we've seen from this team and Carson Wentz in particular is that we know he's putting in the work, but the performance on the field has been lacking, and that's why people are questioning Carson Wentz. And for a guy that has gotten paid $100 million guaranteed last June, the number 2 overall pick, he should be above all of that. He should be ready to go out there and find a way to win. To me, he has to be the reason why the Eagles win football games, and not listening to the noise is part of that as well. And I know he's said in the past that he doesn't listen to the radio stations and doesn't read the paper, but I know the pressure has to be on him, because the pressure in the city to carry a football team that at one point in the season had lost 9 of its 11 starters when you pencil them in for the beginning of the season, and be able to carry a team where they lost a lot of consistency across the board with injured players, it has been hard. But that's why you get paid the big bucks, and that's why you're on the big stage in this position. So Carson Wentz has to be able to shoulder that a little bit better, and at the end, he has to perform much better. I was on earlier with Nick Wright in First Things First, and he said something that I think is very true. You don't go from being an MVP candidate to one of the worst quarterbacks in football because of the people around you. Maybe you drop a couple tiers down, but you don't go to being one of the worst. And Carson has to find a way to get out of that cellar, get out of that worst situation, even though the things around him haven't been very good.
So we've been talking about this. If you look at Tom Brady's numbers today, they're actually not bad. 28 TDs, 11 picks, 95 passer rating, 64% completion percentage. He's basically, when he went to Tampa, all we kept saying is, listen, if he can be as productive as Jameis without the mistakes, they're going to make the playoffs. That's exactly what he is. So when I look at him this morning, I'm like, it's kind of, in the moment, it feels like they're awful. But big picture, they were lousy against the Saints and lousy against the Bears. But, they scored 28 a weekend. What has been your takeaway of the Brady transition, New England to Tampa? Where are you sitting with it today?
For anybody else, we would give them time to make that transition complete. For anybody else, we would say, okay, it's going to take a year just to get used to guys, and that's even with training camp and mini camps and things like that. But when you're the greatest of all time, we're saying that should happen automatically. All we have to do is add great weapons around you and a new coach, and that mix should work. And we've seen that at this age, and with the lack of continuity around him, it's been a struggle for Tom Brady. The one thing that I've always believed in, if you want to help an aging quarterback or a quarterback that's struggling, give them a little bit of a run game. And when you look at the last few weeks, as far as what Tampa was doing with Ronald Jones. They haven't been able to run the football because they've gotten behind early on, and the willingness to commit to it hasn't been there either. So I would love to see Ronald Jones get some more carries. I would love to see if Leonard Fournette, who is a volume back, get some more carries down there as well. You have to find a way to protect Tom Brady, and I don't know that giving him the reins, all the reins to the offense, is the answer in Tampa Bay at this point.
Yeah. By the way, I said about Kansas City, there's so many things I like about them. I mean, we've seen teams we think are going to be a dynasty. The 49ers with Harbaugh, we thought they were going to last forever. Seattle, Pete Carroll, Legion of Boom, and it didn't last. But I look at Kansas City and I think, man, I love Andy Reid, and I love their GM, Brett Veach. And man, I love Mahomes. I guess I worry if they can pay offensive linemen once they pay them. But they score so fast. They're so dramatic. The only thing I worry about Kansas City, and I've compared them, Brian Westbrook joining us, to the Warriors when they had KD, Steph, and Clay. When you score so brilliantly, dramatically, and quickly, sometimes it's hard to be urgent. It feels like you can just flip a switch. Did you ever play on a team like that? Have you ever seen a team that is so offensively competent that they don't play with a great deal of urgency on certain downs, halves, and games?
We had a team in 04, the first year that we had T.O., and we were just one of the best offenses in the league, and we had the ability to score at will. We were putting up points. And the thing that coaches and players have to always do in those situations is challenge themselves to do different things. How many touchdowns can you score? How many routes can you run perfectly? It's always a challenge to be perfect in those situations, and it's more so an inner challenge. It's not necessarily what the team across from you was going to do to try to stop you. It's more so an inner challenge to try to push yourself to do more. And I think that's the same thing that Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and that entire staff there has to find a way to figure out, because you're right, they can throw up 28 points in a quarter or certainly in a half, and it seems like their job is done. But what has happened over the course of these last few weeks is that teams have come back a little bit and have scored points against that defense, and then they got to kind of jumpstart things and get going again. So, it's all about the sense of urgency. It's all about challenging yourself. Andy Reid knows how to do it. Now it's all about going out there and trying to get it done on the football field and functioning that way. I would love, and again, as a running back, I feel like I'm always saying this. I certainly have said it about Tampa Bay a bunch. I would love to see their running backs be able to run the ball a little bit more. That's going to keep you on the field a little bit more offensively, allow your defense to rest. And you're talking about when teams are coming back at you a little bit scoring the ball, it also keeps the ball out of their hands. And so I would love for Andy Reid, who it's hard to say that you take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, but every now and then it'd be nice to get some runs in there as well.
Good stuff, buddy. Brian Westbrook, 9 years in the NFL, a multiple-time Pro Bowler. We love having him on Fox from time to time. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
You bet. By the way, I've got a theory. You know how you talked about Jared Goff? I was just thinking about this. The Jared Goff, the turnover stuff. So I have a theory on everything, even salt and pepper. So I have a theory on Goff why he wouldn't be drafted #1 today. And I'll get to it first, but I want to go to you, Joy Taylor, with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
He wouldn't get drafted top 5. And I'll give you he's a tweener. And not the traditional what you think a tweener is, but I have this kind of theory of what's happened in the NFL, and I'll get to it in just a bit.
Okay. Well, nearly 2 weeks ago, Ryan Tannehill said that reduction in Derrick Henry's carries was by design. Now that Henry's workload has increased again, Tannehill says he doesn't know why the change was made, but he's definitely happy about it. He told Mike Florio that's probably a question for Coach Vrabel or offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. But Derrick's been rolling. As we get down the stretch into games that really matter in January, we need Derrick to roll. I think it's obviously important for us to keep him going, and that's what we're going to do. This is why the Titans concern me.
Yeah.
Because while I know we have embraced the Ryan Tannehill-led Titans, and he doesn't have the same reputation that he had in Miami, I do not trust this team if Derrick Henry is not getting over 27 carries per game.
Well, they're not the same team then.
Yeah, and the numbers support that, and so, I mean, he's been playing amazing, so as long as he's going, there is no problem. But I don't want to see them start to get cute towards the end of the season or try something in a playoff game. Like if he's not getting those carries, or if for whatever reason a team can stop him from getting going, they have a good run defense, they're in trouble. So they have the ability to do what they did this weekend, which is blow people out, because once he gets going, it opens the entire offense up, and the time of possession is out of control. If you can stop that, what can they really do to you?
Yeah, I mean, we always think Baltimore has to play a certain way. So does Tennessee.
Yeah.
And for the record, so does Green Bay. Green Bay has to get a lead. Green Bay is much better playing in front. Most teams in Kansas City is the exception. They don't have to play a certain way. And that's why, by the way, New England was like that. New England could play slugfest. They could play pretty. They could do tricks. What generally separates the top team in the league from everybody else, we just play anyway. I mean, Golden State. Golden State could do whatever you want. They could go small. They could put length on the floor. And I think that's what I think everybody in the league, even Pittsburgh, has a certain way they're better off playing.
Yeah, and that's usual. Like, obviously, like you said, those teams are the exceptions, right? Like, especially a precision team that is like the Patriots, who are built on extreme preparation and knowing where you're supposed to be before the play is even called. Like that, those type of things, then you can make adjustments like that because you know exactly what to do. This is a team that I just don't trust if they don't have Derrick Henry going. Like, it's very obvious that they need him to do everything in order to open everything up. And it's not that they don't have weapons, it obviously goes through Derrick Henry. So the Giants dodged a bullet with Daniel Jones. Hamstring injury on Sunday. Tests revealed that Jones has a hamstring strain, but ruled out a significant tear. He reportedly still has an outside chance of playing in their next game against the Seahawks, but they'll have a better idea about his availability in the next coming days. If he does miss time, the Giants don't expect it to be long-term. So that's really good news.
Well, so who do they play after Seattle?
After Seattle, they play Arizona and Cleveland at home, and then they are at Baltimore and then Dallas.
You know what? If I was them, I would rest him against Seattle.
I think I would as well, because they are at the top of the NFC East right now at 4-7. Washington's remaining schedule is really tough, and
they're going to lose at Seattle anyway. You're not as good as Seattle. You're going to lose that game, rest him, and then come home and beat Arizona and Cleveland. I think you will. Baltimore right now is not what we thought, and you'll beat Dallas. So you'll go 4-8, 5-8, 6-8. Dallas is 7-8. If you beat Baltimore, you're 8-8, and that wins the division. But I would rest them against Seattle.
I've always said that this is the division for the Giants to win this year. Like, to me, if the Giants win it, that is a significant trend in the right direction.
Oh, God, it's great.
Like, if Philly wins, whatever. Cowboys win, whatever. They don't have their quarterback right now. And Washington, they don't have their quarterback either. Like, maybe it's a little bit of building a culture if they win the division this year for Washington, because they do have a new head coach. But to me, it's the most significant if the Giants do it, because they have their head coach and they have their quarterback. So I'm with you. Let him get healthy. Especially hamstring injuries are really testy. Like, you don't want to put him out there too soon, and then he does tear it, and that's going to be a rough game anyway.
What's the line on that? What's the Fox bet line on that? On the Giants-Seattle game. So if they play Colt McCoy, Seattle's going to roll it. But I'm going to tell you something. The Giants match up with Seattle. Giants D-line's good. Seattle's O-line, as you saw last night, is the weakness of the team. What is the line right now on that? I want to see that line. Because let me guess. If Colt McCoy plays, they'll take it off the board, maybe. If it was Daniel Jones played at 85%, 90%. He can't run, though, so it won't be the same.
Yeah.
But if Daniel Jones played, I bet the line is 3.5 to 4, and the Giants would be an interesting play. It's going to be an ugly, low-scoring game. What is it? So it's not on the board because of the injury.
Yeah. Well, they'll find out in the next coming days. So the Bears suffered their 5th straight loss after a very poor performance against the Packers Sunday night. And in his Monday press conference, Matt Nagy said he's challenging everyone on the team to take responsibility and make some big changes going forward.
Every freaking coach on the staff, every player, better wake up and start understanding where we're at. Have some personal pride. Have a freaking sense of urgency. Know where we're at. Have some pride into who we're playing for and why we do this, and then go find a way to win as a team. Yesterday was flat out embarrassing, and our guys know it.
It was an interesting performance by the defense in this game.
Well, it's interesting when the defense feels. I mean, it's almost like the offense is affecting the defense's mentality in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like Khalil Mack has had stretches where he disappears.
They didn't have a single sack or quarterback hit against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
By the way, the OBJ trade, the Giants got ripped for it. They won the trade. The Raiders got ripped for the Khalil Mack trade. The Raiders got a running back who is the staple of their identity. He's their Derrick Henry. It's funny how we freak out when you have stars traded, but it's like the Raiders did very well with that trade, and the Giants did fantastic on their trade.
Well, we freak out because it feels lopsided in the beginning.
Right.
You have to wait a few years and see how those trades play out. And it's not saying that Khalil Mack is not still a great player, can still be a factor, because he can, but Chicago's problems are not on the defense.
Well, and also, you have to hit the draft pick.
Right.
So Raiders got a first-round running back who's a star, and also the Giants got Dexter Lawrence, who's he's a really good defensive lineman from Clemson. So if you hit the pick and the complementary player you maybe got with a trade, then it works.
I think that the Bears situation just really feels hopeless for the rest of the season. And like, they had their moments this year where they felt like they were turning things around. It's just, and Trubisky's numbers, like, you can't even read them. There was so many garbage time numbers there. He's not what it is. He's probably going to start against the Lions, who are 4-7, which will not be a great game.
Enjoy the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
So
News.
here's my Goff thing. First of all, he criticized, Sean McVay criticized Jared Goff. By the way, nothing against Tony Dungy, Tony Romo, or Brian Griese. It's okay to criticize quarterbacks, even on the air. I mean, these guys are just, it's all pillow fighting. Go ahead and rip quarterbacks. They make $35 million a year. Take your shots. It's no big deal. And they're all fine broadcasters. But God, Romo and Brady this weekend, and Tony Dungy and Trubisky and Brian Griese and Wentz, it's like you can hammer a guy when they're not playing well. This comes with the territory. It's not a right guard in college. It's a quarterback in the NFL. But it's interesting on this. So the NFL culturally, I think, changed about 2016, 2017. So Jared Goff was drafted in 2016. It was a pocket quarterback league. But if you go to 2017, the year after Goff was drafted, the league went all in on mobility. 2017, Trubisky was mobile, Watson was mobile, Mahomes was mobile. 2018, Darnold was mobile, Josh Allen was mobile, Lamar Jackson throwing issues but mobile. Who struggled in that draft? Josh Rosen, pocket. 2019, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, move. Who struggled? Dwayne Haskins. And in the 2020 draft, I have it here. 2020 draft. Herbert can move, Burrow can move, Tua can move, and Jordan Love, that's his strength, he can move. So Goff was in 2016. It was the last class where you argued on behalf of pocket quarterbacks. And that's not saying that Daniel Jones isn't primarily with that, but Goff is truly, he's Matt Ryan, slightly more athletic. And so he's a little bit of a tweener. If the Rams were drafting today, I don't think they would draft Jared Goff. Because in 2017, the league just said mobility is key. Now, it used to be 2015, 2016, we were still in that era where if you got drafted, you're like, well, you know, he runs too much. But in 2017, the league just said, that's why Trubisky got drafted. It wasn't because he could throw. It wasn't because of his college career. It was because he could move. And so I think if they were drafting again today, I don't think they'd draft Goff, and I don't think he'd be a top 5 quarterback. But I think he's a little bit of a tweener. So he got caught in that cultural change, and he's one of the last pure pocket guys in the league, and I think at times he frustrates them. So that's kind of my theory on it. The culture was changing. He was the last class where you took a pocket guy. A strictly pocket guy. And I think if McVay drafted today, he'd want Kyler Murray. That's that kind of player. All right, Seth Joyner's coming up next, Philadelphia Eagles. He's always got some good thoughts on that around the corner.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Launching December 7th.
Super Bowl champ, played in the NFL at a high level for 13 years. He made 3 Pro Bowls, still the only player with 50-plus sacks and 20 picks since sacks became an official stat in the early 80s. He's our buddy Seth Joyner, former great NFL linebacker, and knows all about Philadelphia, and he is now joining us live. So let's just start. We talked enough about Carson Wentz today on this show, but Doug Peterson, Philadelphia, listen, Andy Reid's a great coach, and they got tired of it. Are people in Philadelphia tired? You do a lot of pre- and post-game Philadelphia stuff. Are they tired of Doug Peterson? Is he in trouble?
Well, the media, the fans, certainly on social media, there's a lot of fans that are leaning towards someone has to go, whether it's Howard Roseman or whether it's Doug Peterson, and Doug Peterson overhauling not only this roster but also, his coaching staff. There's some sentiment. There's some strong sentiment. Thanks for the Super Bowl, but it's time to move on.
Yeah. Carson Wentz, they're trapped with his contract. When they drafted Jalen Hurts, my takeaway was, oh, brother, second round, all he's going to hear about, first it was Nick Foles, now it's going to be Jalen Hurts. Do you think some of that could be he's got a little backup quarterback inferiority complex because he keeps getting asked about it every week?
Well, Colin, I was just reading this morning. There's an article out on ESPN Insider that talks about, some GMs around the league talking about what's going on with Carson and the fact that he did not like the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts and how he's had to reprove himself all over again after having gone through what he went through with Nick Foles. But my thing is, competition is a part of the game, and no position, in my opinion, should be, eliminated from competition. I think that part of Carson's struggles is that, he's come in as the number 2 overall pick. He's always been thought about as being the guy, and now that he's struggling and competition looms large behind him, he's having some issues with that, and that should not be. I think every single position, should have competition, because competition is going to bring out the best in all the players that you have at every single position, quarterback included.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got to ask you about Bruce Arians and Brady. Did you ever have a coach, because I don't think their personalities quite fit, but I don't think it's the end of the world. Did you ever see a quarterback and a coach, good guys, successful, but their personalities didn't work? Did you ever have a coach that personality didn't work and perhaps you didn't play as well?
I think that anytime, you got 53 guys on the roster, and I think things change all the time. And absolutely, it shouldn't matter, because, the objective is to just go out and try to win, and you try to find a common ground to do so. But I think what you're seeing with Bruce Arians and Tom Brady is not a personality issue, but a scheme issue. Listen, Tom Brady under Josh McDaniels, has been a dink and dunk kind of guy, his entire career, taking what the defense is given, and then once we got a lead, now we can take a shot down the field. Bruce Arians' philosophy is no risk it, no biscuit. He wants to air the thing out, and he's got Tom behind the line that cannot protect him in order to do that. And I'm sure what Tom wants to do is dink and dunk like he's done in the past until you force a team to blitz you. Now you identify where your mismatch is, and you take advantage down the field that way. So I think it's more of a scheme issue than it is a personality issue.
Yeah. You live in Arizona, and it's funny about Arizona. They're so exciting, and I love Kyler Murray. But again, this past week they face Belichick and they lose a close game. Where do you see a lot of them? You're in Arizona. You read a lot about them. You watch them. You probably have good contacts down there. What do you make of Arizona and Kyler Murray? Where are they at to you?
I think they're coming. I just think they need another year. I think Kyler needs another year to mature as a quarterback in the NFL, to get in sync with this wide receiver group. You get DeAndre Hopkins, and as great as he's been this year, they really had no OTA. They really had no time to really work together. A few more improvements on the offensive line, and some positional improvements, on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they'll be really ready then to compete. But listen, it's exciting to watch this kid. Not only can he throw it, but he's got wheels like nobody else I've seen since Michael Vick.
Yeah.
And he's a triple threat in every sense of the word, and I think he's just going to get better as time goes on.
I want to go back to that Philadelphia backup thing. You said everybody should have backups. Everybody should have competition. Who was your backup in Philadelphia?
Man, listen, they drafted guys my entire career. You know, my perspective, Colin, is going to be different because I was an 8th-round draft pick, so I know nothing but competition. Um, you know, so every single year there was always someone that they brought on, and it's like, okay, bring them on. You know, listen, it's always been about competition. For me, it should be always about competition with every single player because of the salary cap era that we now live in. And the type of money that these guys are making, the competition for some positions kind of gets swept under the rug. If you're a first-round draft pick, if you're a franchise quarterback, there's not very much competition. You're the guy, and the only way you're not going to be the guy is if you fall on your face. If you don't fall on your face, then the job is basically yours year in, year out, week in and week out. And I just don't think that's healthy, you know, for a team to really operate that way. If you can't figure out a way to create competition, listen, why are the Seattle Seahawks so good? Why have they been so good consistently for so long? Because when you walk in that facility, their mantra is compete. Compete. Now, they may have some down years here or there, but it's never consistent because everything they do is about competition, and they're always going to be competitive because that is their mantra, to compete. That's what all teams should embody, in my opinion.
Super Bowl champ Seth Joyner. Good seeing you, buddy. Hope your golf game is good.
Likewise, my friend.
Good seeing you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, that was always at Pete Carroll at USC, Competition Wednesday. You competed for your starting job. And so Seattle tends to be what I like, which is aggressive. Rams are aggressive. Lakers with AD were aggressive. It works. To me, that's kind of what sports is. Now, you can be the Houston Astros and be too aggressive. But by and large, push, 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 push. Recruiting in college, push. It's the answer. Carshield.com, the code is HERD, HERD, 10% off a deductible. It's a warranty, essentially, when yours runs out, and you can pick the mechanic locally, the dealership. Carshield.com, code HERD, hour 3 next.
About a Girl is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. The new season of my podcast is back with more probing conversations that get at the heart of the issues that are keeping us up at night. From sex and dating during COVID to the stark reality that the gender gap is a lot wider than we thought, and the true ramifications of misinformation.
These ideas that coronavirus is really just about government control, that it's infringing on civil liberties, all of these ideas are similar ideas to the anti-vaccine movement.
So where do we go from here? Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
One scoop's all it takes. mdrivestart.com. Chocolate mousse in the morning. Did it this morning. One scoop, that's all it takes. mdrivestart.com. So Andrew Whitworth is one of those guys that not only has he been playing forever, but he just doesn't miss starts, right? Doesn't get hurt. And this year, suffered a torn left MCL and PCL damage in Week 10 against the Seahawks. Now, he is expected to return. He's starting to walk again. But it's interesting because I just read this morning, the same doctor that did Andrew's surgery is doing Joe Burrow's surgery this week. And Andrew Whitworth, Rams offensive lineman, Pro Bowl tackle, is joining us. So this is interesting. It is remarkable in a country with so many brilliant doctors that you guys would use the same doctor. I don't know why that fascinates me. But so let's talk about the surgery, because there are some similarities between you and Joe Burrow, torn left MCL. Is it painful after the surgery? Can you rehab it? Kind of take me, what are we going to see with you, and what are we seeing with Joe Burrow? What do you expect?
Well, here's the difference, Colin. I actually, as of right now, they've determined won't have to have surgery. So the difference is since he tore his ACL, he really has the same kind of thing as me. It's just the difference is once you tear that ACL, you have to have surgery, and obviously why he's having surgery early is when you tear all that. You have to go in and fix it. With my injury, with a PCL, MCL injury, they can grow back. But if I would have torn my ACL, then you'd go in there and repair all three. But without that, you really wouldn't go in there and repair mine. So we're trying to avoid surgery right now, and so far it's going really well. And Dr. Elichosh obviously is an amazing doctor, and I know Joe Burrow will be in great hands.
So you guys, Rams at the Cardinals this week. Now because of COVID, the protocols, you can't travel. You have to sit and watch at home. I saw Sean McVay was critical of Jared Goff, the quarterback, who's your friend, and I've defended a million times on this show. I kind of think it comes with the territory. Goff's very soft-spoken. He's a really good kid. Do you worry at all that public criticism 2 or 3 times in a month is going to bother Jared Goff?
I don't. I think Jared's a kid who knows what it's about. He's been in tough situations before, and I think he's built to weather this storm. I think that there's going to be moments throughout this season that we can look back right now and say that there's been some great play by our team, and then there's been moments that we're like, man, you know what, we'd like to have it back, and he's been front and center the whole time of owning it when he needs to, and being a part of why we're successful as well. And so I think you really look at 2018, Colin. We had a similar performance against Philadelphia and Chicago, and ended up in the Super Bowl. So I think it's one of those things that you really look at your season. You say, hey, you know what, we're building. You don't have quite the day you want, and don't win a game, and you can't just fall apart. You got to keep digging, keep your head down, and realize it's about getting hot at the right time. And we're a healthy football team that has that potential.
You know, it's interesting. When you guys went out and got Jalen Ramsey, I initially said, wow, that is a lot to pay for a corner. And I wake up this morning and I look at your division with all these big receivers, and I'm like, oh my God, he's like transformed the I think your secondary is the best in the league now. I mean, you've watched it. Did you know immediately? Because I didn't. Did you know immediately, oh, this is going to change some things with Jalen Ramsey?
I don't think you knew it immediately. I think everyone knows what a special player he was, but I think for me, really what's changed it is being in this environment, given the opportunity of what Sean does so well, of letting guys have ownership in who they are, how they carry themselves, and what's important to them, giving them a voice. What's really been special to me is the tremendous player he is, but the opportunity to get to know how his mind works, and the challenger he is. He's a guy that, to me, coming from Jacksonville, you didn't hear a lot of good things about what his chemistry with the team was. You just knew what a tremendous player he was. And then now having him here, his ability to challenge our entire defense with the physicality they play with, and whether they're soft and whether they're playing soft and whether they're hitting people or tackling, what they're doing, he constantly is challenging guys on the physicality they play the game with. And you watch him as a DB, people want to argue who's the best. I mean, there's not a more physical guy than him for sure at the position. I mean, you watch the way he tackles people, it's violent. And he's really made a difference with that attitude and the way he's able to challenge guys around him. That's what really makes you special. When you're an elite player and you have an elite ability to challenge people around you and make them better, sky's the limit for your group.
I think one of the things, it's funny about divisional rivals. And you probably felt this when you were in Cincinnati and you faced the Steelers twice and the Ravens twice, is you're not fooling anybody. And there is something about the 49ers and the Rams. They kind of, last couple of years, they just kind of have your guys' number. And kind of talk about that, the difference between facing divisional rivals and out-of-division and out-of-conference teams.
Yeah, I think when things become common, right? You know the defense they're going to play. You know the offense they're going to play. You really those things you see, whether it be turnovers or critical moments in the game, stick out even more. And I really look at the last couple of years for us. Even the first game last year, come out of the half, it's a tight football game. We fumble the first play of the half and give them a chance to get a 2-score lead, and they kind of hold on to it for the rest of the half there and keep the ball possession. Then you look at the second game. We're having a great game in the first half. We're winning, have a decisive lead at one point in the second quarter, and then we give up a turnover for a touchdown, which gets them back in the game and gives them the momentum that kind of led to a game going back and forth to the wire and them winning. And then this year it's been more the same. The ability to just turn the ball over and not really possess it as well as we should have has come back to bite us against them because we do know each other so well that it's going to be a close game. It's going to be one of those games where you're just biting your nails over who's got the ball last or who's kind of got control of the game, and you're not really going to run away from each other. And so it's another game in this instance this last week where turnovers really ended up biting us. In critical moments, we ended up turning the ball over.
It's interesting. It is yourself included, Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. It's an organization that has gone out and given up first-round picks and gotten stars. And, it's funny, Sean McVay, he's a young coach. He's never overwhelmed by it. And I want you to take our audience inside. A lot of times when you get star-studded teams, they're very difficult to manage. You're dealing with guys making $25 million a year. And then you bring Jalen Ramsey, an outspoken guy. You got Aaron Donald, yourself, Pro Bowl players. Now Jared Goff got a lot of money. You got star receivers. Why does it work, though? Why I never hear anything from the Rams are the quietest team. Forget, we're in the entertainment capital of the world. You don't even hear stories about the Rams. How does McVay balance all that?
I think just by the fact that he lets us be who we are. It's one of the few places I've ever played or been around where, we don't really have rules. There's not a team rule. There's not a list of, hey, rights and wrongs. There's one team rule in our organization, and that's to be on time. And that's just because that's respectful. And that's the only team rule we have in our entire group. No one would tell you another rule because there's not any. We don't care what you wear or what you're dressed like. We want you to be yourself and realize that we're all going to care about each other. We're all in this thing together, and as long as we're all pulling in the right direction, all the other stuff is just it's an opportunity to create diversity. It's an opportunity to create divisiveness that just isn't. There's no point in it. And I think that we want to really have an opportunity where guys be themselves, bring out their best in their personality, and challenge themselves to be at their best each and every week, and that's all that's important, and that we support each other along the way. So I think Sean just does a tremendous job of giving you that confidence that he's in it with you, and the only thing he wants to do is compete and win. And outside of that, we're not here to do anything else. And so I think that makes it fun, where guys enjoy the place they work, they enjoy the environment, and we don't have any yelling or cussing or screaming or calling guys out like that. It's just not the kind of environment. It's an environment to enjoy what you do, love what you do, and let's go compete to win together.
It's funny, when you watch a movie, I've thought before in my life, if you were an actor, how could you watch a movie? Like, you'd be so caught up in other actors. As a football player who never missed games, when you watch a Rams game, if I was sitting next to you and you had the remote, what is it like to watch a game with a Pro Bowl left tackle? Are you a mess? Are you screaming? What is it like?
I'm a mess, Colin. At one point in the game the other day, I had to walk outside, just kind of take a walk. I need to take a breather, just get away from the kids and the wife, and yell at myself a little bit. And it's terrible. I mean, I'm sweating. I can't sit still. It's not any fun. You know what? I'm glad that people love watching our game. So far, I haven't enjoyed it very much. I'd much rather be on the field and have a little bit of feel like I have some kind of control.
Good stuff, buddy. Andrew Whitworth, get healthy. Love to have you back. Love having you on the show.
Hey, appreciate it, Colin. Thank you very much.
Be good. Great guy. You know what I love? No rules. Just show up on time. So it's funny. Goulet, you've been with me the longest, right, Goulet? Like, do I have any? We don't even do a post-show meeting. Like, when I used to work at the other place, they'd have all these post-show meetings, and I was always like, why? We know if we suck. Well, why would I have to have a meeting with Goulet and yell at him? Like, if he's bad, he knows I'm mad at him, and if he's mad at me, I know he's mad at me. I don't believe in post-show meetings. I don't believe in rules. Show up. I always told my wife, just don't fool around. Other than that, do what you want. The fooling around thing, be good, show up at night, have dinner with me, and then you go off and do yourself. I'm not a rule guy. I'm not a big rule guy.
I mean, I understand the point of it, but I think that you have to have a really strong culture, and you have to have good leaders in the locker room, and you have to have people who don't need a lot of that kind of structure, So I think what the Rams have is a really good culture. Like, that speaks to that.
But you're not needy. Goulet's not needy. You're not needy at all.
No.
I think rules are getting in the way of performance.
I mean, there's not that much. We just come here and work.
Well, yeah, but football, you could have every coach has a million rules. McVay's like, show up on time. It's like, that's my kind of coach.
Right, but he obviously trusts his guys. And they have a lot of pride and respect for their teammates. That's the only rule that they have.
Well, you know what McVay did? He brought in, when he got there, he brought in Whitworth. And he had Aaron Donald. So it's like, nobody's going to mess around with a 6'7" tackle and the strongest guy in the league.
What's that smoke?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan. I'm trying to think of my bosses who was a rule guy. I've had one or two rule people.
I've had some bosses. We've had some unnecessary meetings.
Trying to think. Dress codes. Oh, yeah. I had one of those. I wore jeans.
Dress codes?
Well, people...
Actually, you know what? I have heard of that. I had heard of that. I didn't have to deal with that because I'm a woman, so, like, you're not really, like...
Well, what would I say? But... Yeah. Like, what would I say if I wanted you to dress different? Yeah. That would be appropriate. Nothing? There's nothing I could say.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So,
Joy,
there's
I don't like that blouse.
There's few times in the business where, being a woman works in your favor. That's one of them. Like, look, are you really going to tell me what to wear? I don't think so.
You can walk up to a guy like me, like, comb your hair to the other side. You look like a mess.
No, but it's radio where I ran into that. So there was, like, all the guys were complaining. Because in radio, you show up in anything.
Oh, yeah.
And no one cares. Just, no one can see you. So we had a boss once who was like, yeah, you got to wear button downs. And we were like...
My old company, they wouldn't let you wear flip-flops to work.
This is not going to last. I mean, I don't hate that rule. There's a lot of feet. Okay. I'm a big feet person. All right. You could drop something in your toe.
All right.
This is Sammy J, and I have some exciting news to share. We are back for Season 2 of my podcast, Let's Be Real with Sammy J. Season 1 had some amazing guests, including YouTube sensation Liza Koshy and NBA All-Star Kevin Love.
Nothing robs us of more human potential than mental illness.
This season will have more revealing and unfiltered conversations with celebrities, influencers, activists, and athletes, including the amazingly talented Anthony Ramos.
How do we dig deeper in what we say as artists if we aren't digging deeper in our own lives?
TikTok sensation Dixie D'Amelio.
This time last year, I was on the bus to field hockey games. I didn't even do TikTok.
And to give back, my guests will also talk about a charity that's close to their hearts.
Oh, Sammy doing all this important work in the world. I'm saying 17, man, come on.
Listen to Let's Be Real with Sammy J on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
I don't get post-show meetings, though, in our business. And by the way, Mike and Mike used to have like a 2-hour post-show meeting. I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Well, if you have a post-show meeting that preps you for the next day, then
how do you prep? There's games on.
Yeah, that doesn't work because there's stuff that everything's going to change.
I am in my car. By the time I sign off, I throw it to Marcellus and Acho, right?
Yeah.
I am in my car in 90 seconds, and I don't think about anything other than what I'm going to eat for lunch the entire drive. The show disappears into the ether. I never think about it again.
I'm with you. I think it's one thing that's changed a lot for a lot of people in 2020. Unnecessary meetings.
Why?
And then that spiraled into like unnecessary Zoom meetings, which have now been.
Can you imagine being in management? No wonder they all hate us. Our life is so much better. They're in meetings all day.
A lot of meetings.
That's why our managers all hate us. They're in meetings all day.
So DK Metcalf leads the league in receiving yards after having a career-high 177 yards yesterday against the Eagles. Unbelievable. And after his record-setting night, he said he had a little extra motivation going into the game.
Oh, I want to hear this.
One of the defensive coaches came up to me and it kind of made me mad that he was like, I was in Detroit with Megatron, but you're not there yet. In my mind, I'm not trying to be Megatron. I'm trying to be me. So, had a little chip on my shoulder the whole game.
Don't tell DK.
Was that Jim Schwartz?
That was. Yes, sir.
DK Metcalf. I was just talking to Andrew Whitworth during the break. Is he 245? How much does he weigh? How does a corner who weighs 204? I mean, it's
he's
just
so fun to watch. He's similar to Derrick Henry in that he's just so big and so fast and so strong.
It's very rare in pro football where you get a physical mismatch.
Yeah.
Like Aaron Donald is too quick for the people blocking you. DK Metcalf is too strong. Derrick Henry breaks into the secondary. It's literally a refrigerator coming down a mountain.
It is. It is. He became the fastest player to reach 1,000 receiving yards in a season in Seahawks franchise history in 11 games. He's 248 yards from Steve Largent's Seahawks franchise record of 1,287 receiving yards with 5 games left to play. Jim Schwartz said he meant the comment as a compliment to Metcalf, telling him, "You may not be Calvin yet, but you're on your way." Metcalf responded on Twitter with the Jordan meme from The Last Dance. Look, he's talked a lot. They were talking about on the broadcast. He's a chip on the shoulder guy.
Yeah.
Like he likes having a little extra motivation.
Yeah.
And if you compare Calvin Johnson and DK Metcalf through their first 27 games, DK does have the edge. Although I would balance that by saying Calvin Johnson was not getting the ball thrown to him by Russell Wilson.
First of all, they're similar in that they're physically, it's not a fair fight.
Yes.
Calvin was just bigger and stronger. I feel like Metcalf is faster than Calvin Johnson.
They don't feel like the same.
No,
I know everyone's going to compare them.
I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying that.
I would need to pull up some old.
How fast was Calvin Johnson? Goulet, get off the hockey scores for a second and give me some info I can use. How fast was Calvin Johnson? I feel like DK Metcalf is a faster Calvin Johnson.
I mean, he was Megatron, right? So he was physical, and it was a physical mismatch, like you said. So that's why he's going to get compared to him. But obviously, DK does have an edge in that Russell Wilson is throwing it to him. I think DK is he's a different receiver to me.
What do you got?
Calvin Johnson 4.35 40.
What?
DK Metcalf 4.33.
Okay, so I'm wrong on that.
So they're the same.
Calvin was that fast?
They're the same.
God, that is
According to Google, I don't know how trustable that is.
That's
sometimes
pretty
Google's right.
trustable.
It's pretty accurate.
I didn't know
Anyway,
Calvin
he's
was a
really
fourth.
fun to watch, and he was having his way yesterday in what was not a great night for the Eagles. So Drew Brees has had to watch Saints games from home as he recovers from multiple rib fractures and a collapsed lung, but he says he's similar to Whitworth, not relaxing while he's watching his team's success.
Well, I didn't sit down, but I had my call sheet in hand, and as these situations would arise based on kind of what I knew from the week, and just try to anticipate what was going to be called. And I mean, honestly, just play the game. I mean, I love the game. Obviously, I have a huge vested interest in what's happening out there. Personally, rooting for a lot of guys as well. But man, just couldn't sit still. Just it was like I was playing the game.
It's a really funny comparison you use to actors. Because I never thought of that. Like, if you're an actor, how do you enjoy a movie without being completely critical of, like, what's going on and the lighting?
If you're a comedian, can you just go and laugh at the jokes? Or are you deconstructing them? Or are you watching his pacing and tempo and how he hung? I'm like...
Well, I mean, when we watch other shows, I can enjoy the show.
No,
but I'm still...
Judging.
I'm still judging, yes.
No, when I watch a show, as Goulet will tell you, it's all about topic selection. So I'll turn on a show and I'll be like, why would you do that topic? That's news. It's not a topic.
Oh, yeah. I'm totally with the topic selection as well. But also, I pay attention to, like, if someone is saying, like, I'll be listening to what someone's saying, and if they're, like, constantly asking someone else, like, what they think, or if they, like, really don't have a thought, it's just kind of a bunch of words.
Rambling.
And it's like, okay, they didn't really research that topic. They're just kind of like getting their way through this particular topic, which happens when we talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But yes, so I can see how this would be difficult for guys to sit at home, especially when they're still playing, because that's how I watch shows. All shows, like not even just sports shows, like news shows. I'm like, that's what happened there. The prompter went down there, like, when things are happening.
Oh, yes.
Then it's just impossible to not consume it when it's your business. But that's funny. That's the same thing that we're saying. He's not enjoying it. But that's funny that he's really going through the play calls at, like, he's doing it like he's on the sidelines. I guess that's the only way you can do it, because he's going to be back eventually.
Yeah.
So Dennis Schroeder finished second behind new Lakers teammate Montrezl Harrell for Sixth Man of the Year this past season. But this year he's hoping to have a bigger role with the defending champs.
I did this off the bench stuff already 2 years with OKC. I think I try to move forward. I think with AD and LeBron, I can be helpful. I think as a starter in the PG position that LeBron, don't have so much stuff in his mind.
One of the reasons this is big, the Clippers actually need a true point, and they don't have one. And the Lakers, who had LeBron controlling it, went and got him. When they first did this, I thought, oh, God, the Clippers could really use Dennis Schroeder. Because the Clippers, one of their issues was last year is, who's the point? Lou Williams isn't really a true point. I think this is such a massive move.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out. The Lakers, the rich got richer, and we were really looking forward to having the Warriors back full strength. The Clippers are going to be a little different now. I mean, it's hard to not. How do you not consider the Lakers to be the favorites going into next season?
I think they got better at everything. I think they needed more depth. They got it. They needed a true point when LeBron's off the floor, or even if he is got it. They needed a third scorer, got it. And they needed to get younger. So Rondo leaves, Schroeder in. Dwight Howard, I think, is gone now, and they get Montrezl Harrell in. So they got younger, they got deeper, they got a true point, and now they can shoot more. I just, athletically, they're better. I think I was actually, and I have buddies that work in the league, and I was like, that's one of those rare trades. You're like, that's kind of stealing a guy. That's when Pau Gasol, the Lakers got Pau Gasol. I was on a tarmac flying with a buddy to Mexico, and I literally was like, they just stole Pau Gasol. Kobe's got Pau Gasol now?
Well, the Lakers are back on track. They had a couple years of basically dysfunction, and now they're able to make moves moving forward. Like they're the rich get richer. That's how it goes when it's a well-run organization. And the NBA season is just 22 days away.
All right.
December 22nd.
Good stuff. Joy with the news?
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
The game is called Colin or Call Out. Of the teams going forward, do I buy him or not? That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
Rectech Grills, RECTEQ.com. Stainless steel, 6-year warranty. Built by grillers for grillers. All right, we're past Thanksgiving. We're starting December. They say this is the football season that matters. So we got a lot of teams in playoff contention right now. They would qualify today. Am I call in or call out on the team?
All right, the Buffalo Bills, call in or call out?
I'm in on them. First of all, they're pretty lethal offensively. Josh Allen's the only quarterback with 20 touchdown passes and 5 rushing touchdowns. They've won 3 of 4. They're good off buys. What does that tell you? They're well coached. They're one of 2 teams in the NFL that's had over 20 first downs in every game, so I get the exact same offense every week, very explosive, beat you down the field. So I'm in. This is a playoff team.
How about my Dolphins? Call in or call out?
I think it's a playoff team. Call in. I'm in on them. They've won 6 of 7. 17 straight games defensively, they have a takeaway, which is really remarkable in the NFL. Ryan Fitzpatrick has won as a starter. Tua's won as a starter. Now, they're not as good as the Saints, but similarly, they can go to a backup. Tua's got a different style than Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're a win-a-game in the playoffs, but I think they feel like a playoff team.
How about the Browns?
Call out. I have my reservations. First of all, they've had the easiest schedule in the NFL. Right now, they're a kind of a one-dimensional team. They run the football, but Baker Mayfield, 4 straight games, 20 completions or fewer. So they really, and by the way, now they face the Titans coming up, the Ravens coming up, and the Steelers coming up, and I think they lose all 3 of those games. So they've won a lot of one-possession close games against some really average teams, and I don't feel great today about what I see.
The Tennessee Titans, call in or call out?
Call in. I like them a lot. I don't think they can win the Super Bowl. I think they're good enough to get. I guess if you can get there, you can win it. Fewest giveaways. They've scored over 43 times. They can demolish teams. They're not real finesse, but Ryan Fitzpatrick leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks. Unlike Baltimore, they can play with a lead. They can play from behind. And 3 of their final 5 are against bad teams with losing records. So I think they're going to be a playoff team.
The Ravens, call in or call out?
Call out. I think I missed on this team. I think Lamar Jackson's struggling with turnovers. I think they're struggling with COVID. 22 Ravens have been placed on that. They're going to get hammered by the Steelers tomorrow afternoon. And it feels like they have a problem they can't solve, their passing game right now.
The Colts, call in or call out?
Call out. They struggle running the football. So Jonathan Taylor, I love as a draft pick. He's missed some games. They average about 3 yards a carry, 3.6 yards. It's one of the lowest per yards carry in the NFL. They struggle against physical teams. Tennessee pushed them all over the field. The Ravens gave them problems. The Browns gave them problems. So Darius Leonard's a great player, but their defense is, you think it's a good defense, but you can run right at them. And now sometimes they can run at you, but not as often. So they don't run the ball consistently. They did against Green Bay, a finesse team, and they don't stop the run enough for me. So I think they're not good enough at quarterback to have those deficiencies.
The Raiders,
call out. They just need one more draft to figure out their defense. 7 games, they've allowed 30 plus points. You can't win by shootout every week. Last week's a prime example. That's how they have to win. Like when their offense doesn't show up like last week, they get blown out because they can't stop anybody. So they're just not a good enough team. 7 times somebody scored 30 or more against them. You can't win post Thanksgiving that way.
The Packers.
Well, they'll make the playoffs, but I'm out because I think there's a way to beat them. So they're 1-2 against teams with winning records. The Bucs blew them out, and the Colts in the second half blew them out. Their defense has allowed 100-plus rushing yards in 7 games this year, and they allow almost 5 yards a carry. So it's a bottom 10 rush defense. So again, they're going to win games. They've got stars, but they had time before the trading deadline to get a linebacker and to get a more physical presence up front, and they didn't. And so, again, they're going to finish 12-4, 13-3, but I just don't buy them as a multiple playoff winning team.
How about the Bucs?
I do. Again, they've lost back-to-back, so everybody's freaking out. But I'm not. I think their defense, they have the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL. The 20 takeaways is like only the Steelers have more. Brady we're just freaking out over the Brady thing. Go look at his numbers. 28 TDs, 11 picks, 96 quarterback rating, 64% completion percentage. It's not as good as we want, but it's fine. Right now, he's a top 7-8 quarterback production-wise in the NFL.
The Rams.
I'm in. They're 0-2 against the Niners. They're 7-2 against everybody else. I don't think they have a huge flaw. I think when Jared Goff is comfortable, which he's not clearly against the Niners, but very few teams are as physical as the Niners up front. Their defense, their secondary is unbelievable. They allow the second lowest passer rating in the NFL. They've got a great coach. Jalen Ramsey can take out your best receiver, so I like the Rams. They played like crap Sunday, but I like them.
Finally, the Cardinals.
Call out, but I've always felt they're a year away. Most penalized team in the NFL. They make a lot of mistakes. Kyler Murray, you saw him Sunday. They're still figuring the game out. He's a young guy, needs more starts. Only started 1 year in college. He just needs more reps. It's a tough division. There's a lot of good coaches in this division and a lot of good defensive lines. I like Arizona, but I think everybody thought they were 5-11. Can they get to 8-8? That's about where they'll get. And then next year, he gets another 16 starts. They make their run next year. Casper.com, code HERD, having a big 30% off sale in the holiday season. Casper.com, code is HERD. Always get some percentage off. Deductible may apply. Casper.com. All right, good stuff. Flew through it. No post-show meeting.
Yes.
No, just go home. Go have an early cocktail. We'll see you tomorrow in Los Angeles. It's the HERD.
I'm Stephanie Rule, MSNBC anchor and NBC News senior business correspondent, and host of the podcast Modern Rules from NBC Think and iHeartRadio. Times were complicated a year ago, but now, complicated doesn't seem to cover it. Sometimes it feels like we're now being asked to play a game where the rules have changed, but we don't know what those new rules are. So I want to try and figure it out together. The new season of my podcast, Modern Rules, is back with more probing conversations, because how else can we meet the demands of these crazy times unless we're at the very least trying to get smarter? From sex and dating during COVID to the dangers of misinformation campaigns. We're talking about all of it.
And so what I see coming is, however this ends, that next phase will be a really exciting beginning for sex and relationships. I think it's going to lead to an actual, like a post-COVID sexual revolution.
Join me, Stephanie Rule, for the second season of Modern Rules. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.